And we're moving into our second conversation for today. There's some interesting developments taking place as we have representatives at the Jamaican Stock Exchange with us talking about possibilities in our finance sector. We have with us to tell us all about it Ishmael Quiroz, who is the Executive Director of the Economic Development Council. We have in the middle Marlene Street-Forrest, who is the Managing Director of the Jamaican Stock Exchange. And on the end, we have McNaughton, who is the Chairman of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Good morning, and welcome.
Good morning, Marlene. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so we don't regularly have conversations about stock markets here in Belize. So this is very new for us. And I want to, start off with the Belize perspective, Ishmael, to talk about what we are aiming to do in having these guests with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marlene and Isani, for having us. As you might know, the finance sector development and the deepening of that system is definitely on the Economic Development Council's radar of business climate reforms. For far too often, we've heard that access to finance or access to affordable finance is a constraint to growth in Belize, and especially growth for the business sector. And so therefore, we're thinking of non-traditional instruments that may be available. We've had some examples of municipal bonds being floated, so there's an appetite for that and a new interest. And so together with the International Financial Services Commission and the Ministry of Finance, the EDC is hosting this delegation by the Jamaica Stock Exchange for us to learn from their experience, as well as to kind of figure out some opportunities that might exist for Belizean business.
Yeah. Now, before we talk about what's happening in Jamaica, what has been the response since you first issued invitations for people to participate in this consultation piece?
There's been tremendous interest right across the board from public and private sector.
Yeah.
From the private sector's perspective, there is this persistent issue of excess liquidity in the system. I think people want to invest. They want to grow, but perhaps they don't necessarily want to be indebted by taking out loans. But there are alternatives, there are options, and so perhaps you can provide a portion of your business in the form of shares. And so there's an interest there. From the public sector side, there is interest knowing that there are things that we need to have in place before we can actually go that route. And so it's important for us to talk about it together and move forward in getting all the pieces in place.
Yeah. Well, Marlene and Ian, I think, this is really an introduction to the Belizean public about the stock exchange in Jamaica and a financial structure that we're not really accustomed to. What's the first thing you would say to them in being able to explain how it works?
Okay, so the stock exchange operates a stock market or several markets where companies who want to raise funds can come to the market in an orderly way and approach investors who want to invest in these companies. And it is through a regulated framework so that persons, after they have done that, can also trade these securities on the secondary market.
Yeah. Now, the Jamaica Stock Exchange is, how long has it been running?
Actually celebrating 50 years this year. This year, so we've been around.
Yeah. And you are actually listed as one of the most successful stock exchange systems.
Yes, so we are the best performing exchange in 2018 and also 2015. And currently we are among the top 4 in terms of best performing exchange in the world.
And what do you credit for that success?
Mainly the regulatory framework and the fact that persons have been introduced to equity capital and have seen how it has really revolutionized their businesses, and investors are benefiting as well. We also, in terms of the economic climate, it is it's sound, and people understand that there is confidence if they invest in companies that these companies will provide a good return on investment.
When you look at a small country like Belize, in comparison to where Jamaica is in terms of having a robust stock exchange system, what are some of the things that we can learn or take away from a very basic level to be able to perhaps begin to establish our own systems?
The first thing really is that there needs to be education. There needs to be a public education initiative which enables people to understand what the stock exchange is, what it offers, and how they can participate. So that's the first step. The second step really is to ensure that it's properly managed and properly regulated. And once that's in place and people have the confidence that, you know, this is not a, I hate to use a bad word, Ponzi scheme. You know, the confidence will grow and the market will grow.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's really what I wanted to dive in on, because you mentioned three things, Marlene, which I think is important, and I wanted to separate. One was looking at the regulations. Right. You have to have the proper structure in place.
That is correct.
For it to be accountable, transparent, and especially when people are putting money, they want to know that it's safe.
Right.
What are some of the perhaps innovative regulations that you've established? You know, we in the Caribbean, we do things a bit different sometimes. Well, how have you been able to allay the fears of investors that the stocks that they purchased are actually going to be worthwhile?
Okay, so the stock exchange is a self-regulatory organization. So we have an independent regulatory and market oversight committee of the board, and we also have a regulatory and market oversight division that report directly to the independent members of the board. So that gives that governance and confidence in the market. Then we are regulated by a Financial Services Commission. That's a government entity. So there are various levels of regulation, and the stock exchange itself now regulates both the listed companies and the brokers that operate within the market. So there is so many areas of regulation that people begin to feel comfortable. But not only is it that there is the regulatory framework, but we actually regulate.
Yes. And the independence and autonomy of your
correct.
regulation bodies. That's important
That's
as well.
very important. Very important.
In addition to that, also integrity of the transparency of the system, right? Individuals will be able to determine exactly how the movement of the stock prices are happening. So when you have a system that actually has very good price discovery, transparency in movement of prices, all the other pertinent information that is required for people to make informed decisions, you then get a confidence level which allows people to understand that, look, you know, this is for real.
At a very basic level, once again, why is a stock exchange beneficial to any potential investor? How would you sell that idea to the average Belizean who is a business person or who looks to finances and the financial sector but may not necessarily know fully how stock exchange works?
Okay, so let me say that when a company comes to market to raise especially equity capital, I want to focus on that. Equity capital, and that is a share in the business. It's patient capital. So the company that looks to raise equity capital knows that when I get this money, I'm able to now continue to use it in terms of the promotion of my business, productivity, and the shareholders will wait until that company is doing well, either to get dividend, but then there is also the increase in the share price for the investor. But the company itself has that window within which to grow.
And you know, this is clearly when you put it in that light, it shows where the opportunities can exist for Belizean businesses. How does the success of the Jamaica Stock Exchange impact the economy of Jamaica?
Well, it is the fostering of robust or mobilization of capital. And once capital is mobilized in order for the businesses to use that, then it lends itself to the growth of the economy. More jobs are created, more taxes for the government, and it rises everybody's the level of the economy.
And in addition to that also, because you are listed on an exchange, there are certain requirements in terms of governance which are required. Now that actually ensures that companies are better managed.
Yes.
And prevent fallout in terms of companies that are actually so much better managed that the risk of bankruptcy or other negative issues are reduced.
If I could add to that, when on that matter of better management, both in terms from a regulatory perspective as well as at the business level, at the company level, there is that much more heightened efficiency and productivity within companies. Once there's that oversight, there's checks and balances, there's audited, financial statements that are required to ensure all your investors or all your shareholders that you are being properly managed.
Yeah.
That contributes to growth. So businesses can grow more, hire more people, and in return, the government benefits from taxation.
In addition to that also, because you're better managed as an organization, financing institutions will look more favorable at you because you are better managed. You have audited financials, which they have visibility on. So the whole infrastructure becomes better. If you are
so if there were a situation where you would need access to capital, the fact that you have your house in order,
That
so
is
to speak,
correct.
allows you to be able to
Exactly.
And very importantly, it might enable access to more affordable finance
Right.
because there's reduced risk.
Right.
That's also beneficial to the entire banking sector
Yeah.
because as you reduce the risk of, having people not repay loans, everybody benefits.
So let's talk about benefits for investors, because that's also part of the attraction of it as well. While businesses may be able to raise capital by selling the shares, what's the attraction for investors?
Quite a number of advantages. One is that companies that are listed pay dividend out of profit. And what we have found in terms of the Jamaican experience, most of our companies pay dividend. Then there is the price appreciation, meaning when the companies do well, the price of the shares tend to go up. And that again is a benefit for that investor if he wants to sell those shares. For Jamaica, there is no tax on that capital gain. So investors can take that just off the top.
Is that as a form of an incentive, or is it an incentive to stimulate more investment, or it's just that there isn't any tax regime on it?
Well, because of the fact that we want to develop the capital market, the government, because that is a government-driven program, the government has indicated that there would be no tax on capital appreciation, and on dividend the tax is also reduced.
In addition to those benefits also, there is the benefit of diversification of your investments. Right? It's never good to have all the eggs in one basket. So this provides another source of investment opportunity for investors.
So this visit is twofold, I understand. One, you are perhaps discussing with private and public entities about the feasibility of establishing a stock exchange in Belize. What are some of the first things you want to be looking at?
Well, when we incorporated the stock exchange in Jamaica, I want to go there. One of the things is that we engaged the financial sector and all the authorities, for example, the central bank, the securities dealers, if there are those. And so you engage those in order to ensure that when you are developing your market, you have all the stakeholders together. Obviously, you're going to engage with investors as well, or potential investors. So those are some of the things that we look for.
And what makes, when you look at a small country like Belize, what would make some of the necessary requirements or necessary steps that would have to be taken before the establishment of a stock exchange?
What would make?
What would be necessary? Is it about getting the regulations in place first? Is it the buy-in from companies that would want to be listed? Is it a study as to who'd be interested to be investors?
You have to do all of those. You have to do all of those. Regulation is key. Because confidence is important in a market. So the regulation is key. However, what you really need to do is to start engaging. You have to start engaging your brokers as well as the investors and the companies.
Yes.
Because the companies are, they're the ones that are going to offer the securities. So you want to ensure that they have a buy-in, and you want to ensure that they have their house in order.
Yes.
In order to issue shares.
Yeah.
Very, very important. We found in Jamaica that what we did was to engage those companies, see where they are in terms of readiness to issue shares on the market, and to assist them along that path.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, as I said, it's twofold. The second part of your visit is also exploring companies in Belize to list on the Jamaican Stock Exchange.
Yes, insofar as you have companies that want to raise capital, Belize is a part of CARICOM.
Yes.
And our rules are so drafted that CARICOM companies can raise funds within Jamaica or can just list, because you do not have to necessarily raise funds to list. You can also list on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, on any of the markets that we have.
Yeah.
So we have the main market, the junior market, the US denominated market, and the bond market, and who knows too, one could also create a Belizean market. Yes.
So Ishmael, coming into this, has there been any expression of interest from any local businesses thus far?
Yes, indeed. As we mentioned previously, there's already precedents, so to speak,
Yes.
of businesses either issuing commercial paper or other instruments, or investing in bonds, and so there is interest. Primarily, it's some of the larger corporations in the country that have quite a lot of assets and liquidity, but that also want to diversify and have perhaps more return that would be able to do that in the first instance. And what's also interesting is the capacity building in terms of the skill set, more and more skill set of people, experts in the financial sector, who are popping up and really doing their thing in terms of educating, in terms of proving that this can work.
Yeah.
Of course, it does need the framework, and therefore the central bank is also, interested, as well as the other stakeholders. So there's quite a lot of interest from companies in broad cross section.
You work with public entities too, or private? You started with private first and then included public?
Both.
Okay.
So the government, in terms of 1962, when we started the stock market as against the stock exchange, what we had 17 companies, and it was a mix of both government entities and private entities.
Okay.
So what the government did at that point is to entreat the private entities to issue 25% at that point of their shares to the public. And the government also privatized some of the companies across the market. So it was a mixture.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what are the possibilities that exist here, Ishmael?
Some of the possibilities, I think there's the idea that a lot of very large companies may want to just put certain portions of their portfolio to the public to raise capital. And we've already heard from some stakeholders in the private sector that they're ready and willing to do this. They're already perhaps not benefiting from some of the investments that they're making in terms of not getting as much. And so there's definite interest. Some of the people that we will be meeting with over the course of today and tomorrow are perhaps going to actually come forward with some of their potential opportunities.
Yeah.
And so we're looking out for that.
So if I'm a business owner and I'm paying attention to this and I'm trying to think, would I be fit for this? Would I be fit for the Jamaican Stock Exchange? Would I be ready to be able to put my company or parts of my company out there? What are some of the questions I need to ask myself?
You need to ask yourself whether you are comfortable in terms of sharing a part of your business. That's the first thing. In Jamaica, 20% of the company must be in the hands of not the original shareholders. And that's not a large part. It's not giving away your business. The other thing is you have to do an introspective look at governance. Are you ready now to share information with the market? How you are doing. But we find that the companies who have come forward to share information have they have grown from it, because what it does is put a spotlight on your company to do better. So
I mean, you know, my competitors are then going to see too, you know.
Yes, but even when the competitors see, the businesses still grow because of sustainability. Yes, so and we find that people become more and more comfortable in sharing this information, actually seeing it as a sense of pride, because as soon as you are listed on the exchange, that each day for us in Jamaica, that company's name is on the lips of people. How are they doing? You know, and it gives them that visibility that advertisement could not have bought. So the companies tend to, those are some of the things, they have to look at their books and records. Right? How, you know, their financial statements, because that it will be a requirement for them to publish quarterly their financial results, and on an annual basis their audited financial. But that governance structure is very good for business and the growth of business.
Okay. So for anyone watching who wants to figure out where they can be a part of the consultations that are coming up, Ishmael, how do they get in touch?
So we've partnered with, as I mentioned, the International Financial Services Commission, as well as the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We'll be hosting our meetings today, in particular at the Central Bank. So there's going to be a lot of information out there. We do have a press release to follow based on the outcomes of the discussions. But the Chamber of Commerce would be an ideal source of information in terms of some of the opportunities that arise. There's going to be various events for broader consultation with the private sector. And so we can look forward to a lot of information, us providing that, as well as the Chamber sharing it, and that'll be forthcoming.
And after this visit of this delegation, what do you foresee to be the next step?
So some of the things that we want to take note of coming out of the discussions today are the key considerations that we need to bear in mind in terms of the regulations, the laws that we need to have in place, perhaps the capacity building within, for example, the security trading sector, as well as education awareness. And so we would certainly want to keep pushing that, to keep working towards financial sector development in the broader sense of things, and very particular looking at tax reform, which is, you know, still the hot button topic that is needed, because that's also needed to promote and encourage the system to work. So we'll be working on it.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in and giving us just a beginner's look at what possibilities may lay ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
We're going to go ahead and take that final break now, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap up, so stay tuned.